with the biggest bitch tits on the independent scene is carrying on the TV title, and Mike Sullivan's going home with it. Ron Niemi, Ecstasy, and Mike Sullivan are the cream of the crop of the independent scene. They're the top of the mountain in IPW, and Pat McGroin. Get your ass kicked like you so very well deserve.
Well, I don't think I could have said it better myself, Ron. As we see this week, unlike last week when Mike Sullivan got screwed against the Cuban Assassin for the WWC Puerto Rican title, he's got you out at ringside with him, along with XTC this week, as he goes for gold once again against the television champion, Pat McGroin.
Aaron, when I get out in that ring with the leader of 911 Incorporated, Marvelous Mike Sullivan, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. Pat McGroin and Pat Powers have been stirring up everybody since Pat Powers returned from Canada and Pat McGroin hired him to protect the IPW television title.
That's true. We saw earlier they went and they tried to take out who they consider two of the top opponents for Pat McGroin, two of the top contenders for his title, Devin Nash and the Stormtrooper.
Now what kind of idiots are going to go piss off Devin Nash and the Stormtrooper and then come looking for a fight with 911 Incorporated? You explain that to me, Aaron. Who does such a thing?
Well, Pat McGroin been a little bit cocky, and there you see keep turning his back on the former three-time heavyweight champion Mike Sullivan. You just don't do that. You can get cocky with some guys if you want, but not with a guy the veteran skills of Mike Sullivan.
Pat McGroin's the guy that...
Oh, look at double titty twister.
Beautiful. That Sullivan's always thinking, man. If he can't take it to you physically, which he always can, he'll come at you mentally. He'll start messing with your head. He might not be one of the biggest fan favorites, but the people, they react. I don't care if they're booing, I don't care if they're cheering, I don't care if they're laughing. They react when Mike Sullivan's in the ring.
You talk about the fans not cheering, but I must tell you lately, Ron Niemi, despite the fact that he hangs out with you, despite the fact that he's a member of 911 Incorporated, I don't know if it's because he stood up for IPW against the NWA, or if our great fans, as always, have just realized his great talent, but he's getting cheered more and more and more, is Mike Sullivan.
I don't care if the fans cheer us. I don't care if they're behind us when we're in there going for the IPW TV title. But you better damn well believe when we're against the NWA, I want every one of those people on their feet cheering. I want them handing me weapons if they got them. I want them doing everything in their power to help IPW prevail over the NWA. And you see Mike Sullivan with a beautiful maneuver taking out Pat McGroin.
I tell you what, people know Mike Sullivan as a great mat wrestler, a great brawler, great psychology and timing in the ring, but they forget I've seen this guy do some of the better high-flying maneuvers that we've seen here in IPW. He's one of the bigger competitors here, but he'll take it to you through the air like nobody's business.
And from what Ecstasy says, he's also hung like a horse.
Okay, Ron, we understand that you have those kind of things going on in your head, being the pee-wee of pro wrestling and all. But right now, Pat McGroin, well, I was going to say Pat McGroin taking it to Mike Sullivan, but it looks like he turned it around and woo! We get some chops going on from Mike Sullivan.
Did you see Ecstasy at ringside?
Well, actually, Ron, I was paying attention to the match, and what I saw was Pat McGroin just hit about as hard as anybody's ever hit into the head, and hit his head on the turnbuckle, falling down from that Irish whip that Mike Sullivan just gave him. And now you see him doing probably a 10 count of punches, since that seems to be standard in wrestling, right to the head of Pat McGroin.
I always recommend the 8 punches to the noggin.
Yes, I enjoy myself when the fans keep counting even after you stop punching.
Pat Powers tripping the former IPW heavyweight champion Mike Sullivan, and like I said earlier, stirring up trouble. Getting in the business of 911 Incorporated, and Pat McGroin with 2 very delicate and beautiful somersaults.
All I want to know is, Ron Niemi, why in the world when you're at ringside is Pat Powers able to trip up your man and not take that briefcase upside his head?
Because at that moment I was actually admiring the unbelievably deep cleavage of one Ecstasy.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Now you see Mike Sullivan going outside the ring. And Pat Powers is just beating on him outside. This is what I'm talking about. Pat Powers, Pat McGroin, they give you no mercy. I tell you, I don't know about you, Ron, but I don't want to get into a fight with Pat Powers.
All right, let me pose a... There you go. See? That's the difference between you and me. You don't want to get in a fight with Pat Powers, but you see the hardcore giant. I got right in his face and I said, you listen to me, Pat Powers. You got a problem with me, I'll take you out myself. And I punched him right right between the eyes.
Well, that's not exactly what I saw. The Halliburton came into play as usual, as it does in a 911 Incorporated match. But right now, Mike Sullivan's paying the price for that beating he took from Pat Powers, as Pat McGroin is all over him, choking the three-time former IPW heavyweight champion. And there you see the referee being turned away again, Star. I told you, he missed that class when they taught about turning your back on the opponents.
Star Stevens always misses the tag. He always misses the choking. He's always doing something. Now he's out there arguing with Pat Powers while Mike Sullivan's getting his larynx crushed by a size 10 boot of one Pat McGroin.
I'll tell you what, we all know how great Mike Sullivan is. They know it all over the country that he's one of the top independent wrestlers. But Pat McGroin is probably the fastest rising. He's getting better all the time here in IPW. He's gotten smart by bringing someone like Pat Powers to ringside with him. He's gotten better moves in his execution. He's gotten better timing and better psychology. And beyond all that, ever since he won that title, he's gotten quite cocky.
Pat McGroin earned his way to the title shot. And I'd like to say he earned the title. He didn't. He stole it from Mike Shane, another member of 911 Incorporated, after that goofball Mike Wilson stuck his nose in our business. And if Mike Wilson would keep that Jezebel, hot Jezebel I might add, but if he kept that Jezebel of his at home, and Todd Shane wasn't always trying to hit on her, he wouldn't be so upset. I'm here to tell you, Todd Shane, he might be the man who likes the international ladies of color. He don't care if they're white, he don't care if they're dark, he don't care if they're Hispanic. He likes all women, and currently Mike Wilson's girl is the target of his affections.
But I tell you what, Ron Niemi, everybody here has noticed that. And if I'm Mike Shane, I'm a little upset at my brother, and I'm a little upset at my manager, because I no longer have the television title.
The only thing I'm upset yet is he hasn't hit it yet.
Well, that's true, but here you see Pat McGroin, the man who took advantage of the situation, taking advantage once again when the ref's not looking, getting the extra leverage from Pat Powers and that abdominal stretch applied to Mike Sullivan, whose ribs have to still be hurting from the same kind of treatment he took from the Cuban Assassin on our last show.
It doesn't matter if it's Cuban Assassin, Pat McGroin, or any other of the wrestlers from IPW or NWA. Mike Sullivan's ready to go day in, day out. He can do this 7 days a week if he needs to. But the truth is I keep Mike Sullivan in the best working condition possible. Ecstasy isn't all just there to service every one of his pleasures he requires. She is a top-notch fitness trainer, and she keeps him in the best shape that he's ever been in his life.
That's true. He's probably in the best shape of most anybody back in the back, and that's not taking away from anybody else. That's just talking about the incredible shape that this guy is in. I've seen him wrestle 60 minutes against the Navy SEAL, now known as Rastaman. I've seen him on several occasions pin the former Intercontinental Champion Marty Jannetty. I've seen him pin the current champion Scoot Andrews, Billy Fives, and almost anybody else you can name from the state of Florida. Mike Sullivan holds victories over all of them.
Mike Sullivan is a favorite on the independent scene as well as in the WWF. Kevin Kelly from the WWF, maybe he might not be the best commentator, sure. He might be the 5th string commentator, and they bring him in off the bench every time they need him to interview some jobber or somebody else that nobody else cares about. But Kevin Kelly does have an eye for talent. Mike Sullivan, Scoot Andrews, even the Heavenly Bodies. He brings them up when they need talent to come in and make the sludge look like talent.
That's true, not to mention he's gotten them booking several other independent places, including, as we said last week, Mike, as well as Scoot Andrews, Jeff Peterson, and many others from IPW have competed in that Super 8 tournament that Jim Kettner's ECWA holds every year, the premier cruiserweight tournament in the country.
You bring up Jeff Peterson, one of the greatest IPW light heavyweight champions of all time. That young kid's been battling cancer for over a year now, and I'd be willing to bet Jeff Peterson could get in the ring at any time and still hang with any of the light heavyweights or cruiserweights or junior heavyweights in the country right now. Look at the action at ringside. Stormtrooper and Devin Nash coming back on Pat Powers, and I guarantee you they're going to tear him from limb to limb.
This is exactly what you were talking about, Ron Niemi. Why are you going to go getting these two guys mad? If they'd let them finish each other off, beat the hell out of each other like they were, they wouldn't have been able to come out here and interfere in this match, and all of a sudden, Pat McGroin's insurance policy is no longer there, as Pat Powers just got his butt kicked from Devin Nash and the Stormtrooper.
You see that sick look of pleasure and content on the face of Devin Nash watching Pat Powers get destroyed?
Yes, I did, but here he comes again. You saw him out with the Cuban Assassin. He and Mike Sullivan go way back, and they can't stand each other, and he is absolutely beating the tar out of him with that Cuban flag, and as you can see, that's just fine by Pat McGroin, because 1, 2, 3, still your television champion is Pat McGroin. But I tell you something, Pat McGroin, Cuban Assassin, it's far, far from over. You will hear again from Mike Sullivan. And there you see Cuban getting back in the ring, and here you come trying to save the day, Ron. Tell me what happened.
Well, right there, I just got leveled by the Cuban Assassin for my troubles. What was I thinking getting in the ring with this madman? Mike Sullivan's trying to win it. There's the roster.
There he goes.
His return to IPW.
Yes, he's been back down in Puerto Rico. This man's wrestled all over the world. Germany, Japan, Puerto Rico, you name it. The Rasta man's been there. He's torn it up. He's done it all. He had a lengthy feud with the Cuban Assassin and a lengthy feud with your man, Mike Sullivan. And maybe these two are going to square off right now.
Here's what IPW is all about. You never know who's going to show up. You never know who's going to hit the ring. Mike Sullivan almost overcame Pat Powers, Cuban Assassin, Fantasy, and more interference than I even care to mention. He should be the television champion.
Yes, he should. And here you see what we're all about right here. That's unity, IPW.